So I came across this hilarious article from PC Gamer talking about the former Dragon Age developers apparently not happy with the recent revelation that EA CEO suggested that Veilguard would have been better if it was a live service game. It was the weirdest thing for the CEO to admit, and honestly, a lot of people are roasting him for it, and rightfully so, because one of the things that was wrong with Veilguard, or one of the things that really didn't matter ultimately at the end of the day, was the fact that it was a live service game or not. Nobody had that in their mind because there was way more issues to talk about regarding Veilguard. But apparently it is so bad, this suggestion from the EA CEO, that they said that they would have probably quit if they tried to make it a live service game, which again, I find ironic because the beginning of the development of Veilguard, they were trying to make it a live service game. We saw trailers, we saw pre-footage, we saw everything proving that they were trying to make this into a live service Dragon Age. So again, ladies and gentlemen, all of this seems like one massive virtue signal from people who no longer work at the company, supposedly, and they saw an opportunity to say, well, if you did that, I would have probably quit. I highly doubt that, considering that they did try to do that while you were working there, and it's very clear that you didn't leave. So let's get to this article, guys, from PC Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I will greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So again, we have this issue here with Veilguard. It says EA CEO Andrew Wilson recently voiced some bizarre criticism of Dragon Age Veilguard during a quarterly financial call. He suggested that the game struggled because it didn't have any live service components. I want to be very clear. The fact that EA CEO is saying this about Veilguard, I believe that Mass Effect is 100% cooked. It was already cooked for a multitude of different reasons, but this right here shows where their mindset is at moving into Mass Effect. They are going to try to introduce this game as some sort of a live service game, or have live service elements in it that are going to be overly monetized. They're going to try everything they possibly can to nickel and dime gamers from that particular video game. So Mass Effect, as of right now, in my opinion, is 100% cooked. Hopefully I'm wrong, right? I want to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about a Mass Effect game, but right now things just don't look good. EA did announce that Veilguard underperformed, even if expectations were perhaps set a little bit too high. That's ridiculous, bro. What do you mean that expectations were set a little bit too high for a Dragon Age game? Are you absolutely out of your mind? Inquisition had 12 million sales. Why would it be crazy to think that you could get, 2-3 million sales from Veilguard? I don't understand how that's setting expectations too high. Now, I do think it's setting it too high given the understanding of what Veilguard was. I can understand that. I can say, all right, 3 million sales for a game that's obviously fucking trash. Like, nobody's going to want to buy that game. Clearly, people refunded it in mass. It didn't hit the numbers it was going to hit, not even close, and it bombed, right? So I think you could say that. But to say that it was crazy just because it's crazy, I think that's crazy. I think Dragon Age absolutely had the ability to hit 3 million plus sales if they would have just gave gamers what they wanted from an actual Dragon Age game. But they did everything they could to avoid giving gamers an actual Dragon Age game. But anyway, EA did announce that the Veilguard underperformed, even if expectations were a little too high. Look, I'm not a fancy CEO guy, former Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw says via Eurogamer. But if someone said to me, the key to this successful single-player IP success is to make it a purely multiplayer game, no, not a spin-off, fundamentally change the DNA of what people loved about the core game, I'd probably quit that job or something. It's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that, right? So he's saying that turning Dragon Age into a multiplayer game would change the core fundamentality of the game. I agree, 100%. That would change the core aspect of the game. You know what else changed the core aspect of the game? Veilguard. Literally everything about Veilguard changed the core aspect of what a Dragon Age game actually was. From the looks all the way down to the mechanics, they changed everything for the most part to fit whatever nonsense that Veilguard was. So yeah, it's very clear that you have this game that changed the core of what the previous games were, and it was rejected by gamers. He says, I do want to point out that I don't think it's fair to say the plan was to make the Veilguard into a purely multiplayer game. Instead, it will be a single-player game with live service features, and telling everyone that you'd probably quit that job or something a week after Bioware veterans confirmed that EA has laid them off is also a bit tone deaf. Oh, shut up. Who wrote this? But the point about changing a game's DNA, just to pander to what suits think is the biggest possible consumer market, available is not the right mentality to make a great game that is actually enjoyable. Well, in no actuality, that is a big part of it, right? You want to pander to what actual gamers play. You want to pander to what real gamers want. You want to pander especially to what previous fans of Dragon Age games are looking for in a Dragon Age game. The fact that they chase the modern audience while abandoning their previous fans, I think that's insane. I've never agreed with that. I've always asked the question, why is it that these studios will choose to abandon everybody who has made them who they are and go after this very small modern audience instead of giving both sides what they want to their best of their ability? And I get it. You can't make a game for everybody, but what I'm saying is when you make a video game, make the video game with a mindset of who your target audience is, and then let the rest follow. If the game is good and word of mouth will really spread, then you're fine. If the game is not good, then word of mouth is going to spread in a negative direction. You can argue that they did that with Veilguard, but the simple fact is they decided to chase an audience that is so damn small with a budget that's so damn high that just doesn't make any sense. I've always said if you want to make woke video games, go ahead, especially if they're their own franchise. Now, I have a problem with pre-established franchises, but if you have your own franchise and you're making something new, then go for it. Make as woke of a game as you want, but I would probably be a little bit leery over your budget being a little bit too high, because if you have a high budget with a highly divisive game, you're probably not going to end up very well, ultimately, at the end of the day. So then it says that David Gator, another Bioware veteran, offered up his opinions as to what EA should focus on next, and it's not live service. My advice to EA, not that they care, you have an IP that a lot of people love. Gator says, deeply at its height, it sold well enough to make you happy, right? Look at what it did best at and the point at where it sold the most. Follow Larian's lead and double down on that. The audience is still there and waiting. I agree with that, 100%. Follow Larian's lead. Larian Studios is the prime example of as close as you could possibly get to giving gamers everything they want, right? The wokies, the right-wingers, the everything, that is literally the closest example that you can get to it, even though, you know, it goes a little bit extreme in some aspects. I do agree, right? The pronoun shit is so stupid. It's modern-day fucking nonsense, but for the most part, considering it's an RPG, it's got a ton of optional things that you can do, whether straight, gay, or no sex whatsoever. You could just play the fucking game. I think it gives you plenty of options that everybody found a place in Baldur's Gate 3, which is why it was so successful. So again, guys, I'm glad that these people are speaking out against this stuff, but I really don't think they would be saying this again if they worked at Bioware. Let's be very clear. They're making this whole grandstanding about, oh, I would have quit. No, you wouldn't have, bro. You absolutely would not have. Gator also points out that the internal projections of the Veilguard may have been too high. I don't agree. Therefore, EA's statement that it underperformed may be more indicative of unrealistic metrics than the game itself. Let's be clear, you don't have those numbers, Gator says. Nobody outside of EA does, and we only know what they tell us. Though the fact that they've said little, in fact, says a lot. That's what I've been saying since the beginning. The fact that they have never once announced over 1 million sales tells me exactly what I need to know about this video game and how poorly it actually performed. For Return of the series, after 10 years, they wanted numbers that they could ballyhoo. However, whatever they are, they didn't get them. Does that make Veilguard a failure? Depends on your metric. All in all, the future of Dragon Age doesn't look too bright right now, and despite calls that the idea of Dragon Age can live on through its fans' creative ventures, players shouldn't have to rely on fan-made creations to enjoy a much-loved and established series like Dragon Age. Well, unfortunately, we are going to have to, because quite frankly, the developers that made it are no longer around, and the developers that are here right now that made the new one absolutely hate us in every manner whatsoever, and they decided to give us a therapy session instead of an actual video game with choices that everybody can partake in. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I will greatly appreciate if you get to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.